I'm sure you've heard that Trump has pardoned his good old friend Roger Stone, the man who helped him in both of his campaigns back, even when back in 2000 when he lost he had like no votes and no support. But so there's been a lot of backlash, a lot of visceral response from CNN, MSNBC, Jane Maddow going like, Trump, you bitch boy. And then even here you have legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, who declared it the most corrupt and cronyistic act in all of recent history. Now, it just isn't, is it? Listen, I think the sentence of Roger Stone was justified, and if you don't know, essentially what Roger Stone did is that he went to witnesses and asked them to, and he tried to influence their testimony and try to get them to give false answers to investigators to basically just help out Trump and his whole investigation thing. And this was found out by the Mueller investigation into the whole Russia thing. So he found out that Roger Stone was trying to influence witnesses and trying to get them to give false answers to the investigators, which is clearly illegal. And so this caught up to him, and then he got charged with 40 months in jail. And on the face of it, everything's fine until you look into the fact that a member of the jury, the foreperson of the trial jury, was actually a Democratic activist, and she'd said a lot of bad things about, as in she'd been outspoken about her distaste for Trump, and obviously this was something to do with Trump, and then that he literally tried to get witnesses to give false testimony for Trump to help his case, and to help subdue the whole charge against him with the whole Russia thing, which is also like a big waste of time anyway. And so clearly he did something wrong, but then you also see that the foreperson of the trial was clearly biased, and we know that in our system, for a jury to be fair, it needs to be unbiased. And so having somebody who clearly has bias automatically illegitimizes a case substantially, even though the actual charges were probably fair, and 40 months in prison is probably fair. But the whole thing is, this doesn't end here. Because when Stone wanted a new trial, she denied it to him. And guys, a second trial or a new trial is one of the most basic protections for witnesses or for people that are charged in our entire justice system. So to deny a second trial is a clear mistake on the part of Amy Berman Jackson. That's the judge. And so when you have clear bias, you have reason to suggest that there's problems with the case. And now listen, I think the actual thing is correct, as I've said before, but especially the initial statement of this is the most corrupt and cronyistic act in all of recent history it's a big lie. When I say big, it's massive lie. Okay, so there's a small list of presidential pardons that have been clearly fraudulent. Frankly, it's one of the it was one of the most abused powers in the Constitution, and that the president basically can do whatever he wants without any real limitations, except for helping out foreign adversaries and things like that. But as far as domestic pardons go, he can basically do whatever the fuck he wants. So to call it the most cronyistic act is a literal, just flat out lie. Okay, Thomas Jefferson, the hero of America, he pardoned Eric Bowman for violations of the Alien and Sedition Act in the hope that he would testify against rival Aaron Burr for treason. Bill Clinton, 20 years ago, a Democratic establishment, person, he pardoned his brother, Roger Clinton. And I don't know about you guys, but as far as I know, he had a pretty airtight case against him. And nevertheless, his brother, his good old brother Bill, decided, you know what, guys, I'm going to abuse my power and pardon a guy who's actually pretty much guilty of everything that he was accused of. And he also helped out his business partner, Susan McDougal. He also pardoned the fugitive financier, Mark Rich, who evaded justice by fleeing abroad. And he was also a Democratic donor, by the way, so, you know, no link there. So there's clearly been a lot of fraudulent, way worse examples of presidential pardons in the past. And let's not forget, these are actual pardons by Clinton. At least Trump didn't pardon him. All he did was commute him. So essentially he's still a convicted felon, but he doesn't have to serve time in jail, which is like, doesn't really matter because he's rich as fuck anyway. So it doesn't really like, he doesn't need the whole pardon. He just needs the commutation. Yeah, so just a lie, basically. And the left, like, you know, Mad Al's been going, Trump, you fucking fraud. But it's all a lie, guys. Don't fall for it. It's the same old, really. Like, everything he does is unprecedented. They're fucking gonna destroy us. But it turns out, there's been a way, way worse. Back to fucking Thomas Jefferson. And somehow they went, look, this is what I was saying about crying wolf with the media. Everything he does is the end of the world. Guys, be fucking honest with yourselves. Don't look at the camera and tell us this is the most cronyistic act by president of all time. When you know full well Clinton did way worse. When you know Thomas Jefferson did way worse. And this is why nobody fucking believes you on coronavirus. Because we all know he mishandled it. Those of us who do know he mishandled it are very well aware of it. But everybody else who fucking doesn't believe you anymore, they're not gonna believe you on corona either. And so for that, I fucking hate you. Because when you keep on fucking crying wolf, you're the problem, guys. You're the problem. You're the reason. You're part of the reason why you got elected in the first place. So, just the same old fucking media bias bullshit thing. And I mean, we're kind of used to it at this point. But just wanted to give you guys the facts on the real, you know, facts of the case and why, compared to these other, you know, airtight cases that were pardoned in history, these aren't actually that bad in comparison because there's actual issues with the Roger Stone case and there's clear bias within the jury and he didn't get given a new trial and all these other things. So you guys can make your own minds, but I think it's pretty clear that this is a fucking clear exaggeration by the media and they do their normal fucking crying wolf shit over and over again. But yeah, that's basically it, guys.